The American people are having a really hard time trying to absorb this chaos and uncertainty. And if you look at Capitol Hill, there's some warning signs there flashing for the president. You have 7 Republicans in the Senate joining with this bipartisan bill to have Congress claw back its responsibility for issuing tariffs. It might not go anywhere in the House. In fact, it likely won't go anywhere in the House. But Don Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, has introduced a House version of that same bill. Because, yes, tariffs are a tool of economic policy.
Señores, ¿se imaginan a senadores republicanos abandonando a Donald Trump? Pues ya no se lo imaginen porque, amigos, esto está ocurriendo. Nada más y nada menos que 7 senadores del propio Partido Republicano han decidido romper filas y decirle hasta aquí llegamos. La razón de todo esto es muy simple. Sus políticas aranceles. Políticas que están trayendo más dolor de cabeza que solución. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Amigos, hoy veremos cómo los republicanos están abandonando a Donald Trump tras las últimas decisiones arancelarias. Así que los invito a que se queden hasta el final de este video porque veremos los detalles más interesantes. Pues bueno, amigos, muchos pensaban que esto era imposible. Miembros del Partido Republicano, señores, esos que siempre han cerrado filas con Trump, están empezando a cuestionar seriamente las decisiones económicas del presidente. Todo esto gira en torno a los aranceles, estos impuestos que se ponen a los productos extranjeros, con la idea de supuestamente proteger la industria local. Sabemos que todo este tema de los aranceles suena muy bonito en papel y en el tema de la estrategia, ¿no? Pero la cosa es que al final quien termina pagando más por todo esto son los consumidores, los ciudadanos. Esto no solo es una pelea política, es una señal, amigos, de que incluso dentro del partido trumpista hay grietas. Y ojo, amigos, que estas grietas pueden terminar siendo terremotos. Veamos este clip.
And joining us now are Jeff Bennett, co-anchor of PBS NewsHour and an MSNBC political contributor. Also with us, Lance Trover, Republican strategist, former spokesperson for Governor Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. So, Lance, what's your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, look, I think if you're a country waking up and questioning this president's resolve and when it comes to dealing with these tariffs, you better get with the program. But I think it's also resolve of the American people. I mean, I looked at the president's approval rating going into the weekend was still hovering around 50%. I even saw one poll that had him at 53%. That tells me that, you know, middle America, who, despite all the hysteria coming out of Wall Street and the folks in the media telling them they should panic, may not be panicking after all, because remember, it's Wall Street that has told middle America that the current system, as the way it's been for the last 20 years, is working, as they've watched their towns be decimated, factories leaving, and jobs flooding overseas. So my guess is some folks out there are going to be putting their trust in the man they elected not 5 months ago to do what he campaigned on and see where this goes and take a step back and take a breather and see if he can correct and right the wrongs of the last 20 years when it comes to trade in this country.
Lance, let's put those factors into play, right? Everything you just mentioned. When you look at world reaction, this is not just Wall Street, this is not just the media, with or without, you know, false reports. Nikkei in Japan lost 20% of its value in this last week. You can see that there is actual damage being done to not just Wall Street, but throughout the world.
Yeah, but if you're an American who's in the middle of Ohio who's seen a factory close, and what's the damage that's been done here in America? And look, America is a strong country. We are economically strong. Gas is below $3 a gallon last week. Egg prices are coming down. We saw a jobs report that was beyond what anybody's expectations would have been for the month of March. So we are an economically strong country, and we can deal with this. But the fact of the matter is, and I don't know of any economist who disagrees with the president, that there has been a trade imbalance for decades in this country. And finally, somebody is coming in and standing up to it. Yes, there's absolutely going to be some markets being rocked, but I think there is some resolve, particularly with the American people, that say, hey, maybe we need to try a different path here because the way it's been going has not been working in America's favor.
And Jeff, how do you think it's been playing for America?
Well, it's a great question. And look, it is true that the manufacturing base of the U.S. has been hollowed out for decades. The point of debate here is whether tariffs and tariffs alone are the mechanism by which to fix that and to reshore manufacturing jobs. That's an open question. Economists have said that this tariff plan, at this point, the way it's going, really risks tipping the U.S. into a recession. And Jose, the conversation you were having with Brian earlier about the tariffs, the potential retaliatory tariffs that face China, whether it's 30% or 50% or 70 or 100%, no one really knows. And that speaks to, in the short term, the uncertainty and the chaos that, as we are looking at the latest Dow numbers, off by almost 1.5% now, in real time, that the markets, businesses, the American people are having a really hard time trying to absorb this chaos and uncertainty. And if you look at Capitol Hill, there's some warning signs there flashing for the president. You have 7 Republicans in the Senate joining with this bipartisan bill to have Congress claw back its responsibility for issuing tariffs. It might not go anywhere in the House. In fact, it likely won't go anywhere in the House. But Don Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, has introduced a House version of that same bill because, yes, tariffs are a tool of economic policy. But if you look at tariffs as a political tool, there are Democrats and Republicans who say this gives a president, in this case Donald Trump, but it gives a president too much power. It sets a president up to be the arbiter of economic winners and losers. And it disrupts and subverts the free market system. So to Lance's point about how the U.S. is economically strong, well, yes, the U.S. is a rich, powerful, economically strong country because the U.S. has benefited from the free economic system that this country set up and has steered for generations. And now Donald Trump is trying to undo that. But as he works to undo it, he certainly, you could argue, owes the American people an explanation, a real-time explanation of what his plan is and what his end game is, Jose.
Jeff Bennett and Lance Trover, thank you very much.
Ok, señores, hablemos claro. Los aranceles yo sé que suenan como esta medida patriótica, ¿no? Tipo, vamos a proteger lo nuestro. Pero en la práctica es como ponerle simplemente un impuesto a todo lo que viene de afuera. Esta jugada termina encareciendo desde los alimentos hasta la tecnología. O sea, nos pegan justo en el bolsillo. Donald Trump se ha jactado cuántas veces de querer supuestamente proteger a los trabajadores estadounidenses. Pero amigos, ¿de qué sirve esta famosa protección si al final los sueldos no van a alcanzar ni para comprar lo básico? Aquí es donde la cosa se pone buena porque los senadores que antes lo apoyaban sin cuestionar, ahora están preguntándose, ¿qué sucede? Están diciendo, espera un segundo, esto no va a funcionar. ¿Será porque la economía empieza a mostrar señales de desgaste? ¿O será porque los votantes están empezando a reclamar? Sea cual sea la razón, amigos, lo que queda claro es que algo está cambiando. Y algo que no es menor. Es como ver a los jugadores estrellas empezar a salirse del equipo, justo antes del partido más importante. Miren, yo entiendo que algunos quieran defender los aranceles como una forma de querer obligar a otros países a jugar limpio, ¿no? Pero yo les pregunto, ¿vale la pena poner en jaque la estabilidad económica de millones de familias? Porque al menos para mí es una jugada bastante arriesgada, por no decir bastante irresponsable. Salen a decirnos, no se preocupen, esto es por tu bien. Pero mientras tanto, por tu bien tú vas al súper y todo cuesta el doble. Amigos, ¿qué opinan ustedes sobre esto? ¿Será que estos senadores están abriendo los ojos a tiempo? ¿O será que ya es demasiado tarde? Yo sinceramente creo que es un paso posiblemente en la dirección correcta, pero no es muy sencillo. No basta solo con hablar. Hay que ver si realmente pueden hacer algo para cambiar el rumbo de este destino. Este destino llamado recesión. Pasemos a la siguiente noticia, señores, porque también tenemos que hablar de una de las títeres de Trump, que una vez más se encuentra presa del pánico, luego de ser atrapada con mentiras sobre lo mismo, sobre los aranceles. Y es que, amigos, sinceramente cuesta creer al gabinete de Trump. No lo digo solo a la ligera. Creo que estamos posiblemente frente al grupo de personas más incapaces, más perdidas, más torpes que ha pisado la Casa Blanca en la historia moderna. Tal vez uno pensaría que con el paso del tiempo, al menos uno de ellos, ¿no?, aprendería algo. Pero no, amigos. Cada vez parece que entienden menos, que hacen peor su trabajo. Siguen hundiendo todo lo que tocan. Si todo esto le sumamos los aranceles que impuso Trump, yo creo que la cosa se vuelve un desastre total. Lo peor es que ni siquiera hay un mensaje coherente detrás de todo esto. O sea, no hay una narrativa, no hay una justificación real, solo es caos. Pero el caso más ridículo, uno de los más vergonzosos, fue recientemente de la secretaria de Agricultura Interna, que es Brooke Rollins. Si es que no lo recuerden, es la misma que fue a CNN con Jake Tapper. Y si es que no lo vieron, amigos, lo que pasó ahí fue un colapso total, un derrumbe en vivo. Mentiras tras mentiras, gritos, respuestas, nada de sentido. Vamos a ver ese momento porque de verdad, amigos, no tiene desperdicio. Pongamos este clip.
I agree President Trump talked about tariffs on the campaign trail. I think probably a lot of voters thought that he was talking about the kind of targeted tariffs that he implemented in the first term and not these global tariffs that have diminished, wiped $6.6 trillion of wealth off of Wall Street. But I have to say he didn't, when he was campaigning, talk about the pain that he is now acknowledging. And I have to say we're getting a very Pollyannish view of what's happening from the Trump administration.
I disagree with that, Jake.
Well, let me just finish the question. Let me just finish the question and then you can answer.
That's not right.
But there seems to be a lack of acknowledgement of the real pain and panic people are feeling right now. And I don't know if you saw it because you were on TV, but there was a moment on Thursday, you were on Fox Business, you were praising President Trump's leadership, celebrating these tariffs, and all the graphics surrounding you, again, this is on Fox Business, showed the markets in a nosedive. And so you disagree that I say there seems to be a disconnect between what you're saying and the reaction of the world. Tell me why you disagree.
Listen, the president has, even in his State of the Union, I believe, he said that there will be some uncertainty. When we did the targeted tariffs in 2017, 18, 19 with China, I mean, listen, I was in the West Wing. I was helping run his domestic policy agenda. I was in those conversations. Secretary Sonny Perdue, the Secretary of Agriculture, put together a fund, basically, that allowed us to make whole farmers and ranchers that were immediately, hurt and had to have some mitigation efforts. That happened. So the idea that we didn't know that there would be some uncertainty just isn't true. We knew there would be uncertainty. But to take Thursday or Friday, and as we are basically laying out the vision that the president effectuated in the Rose Garden on Wednesday, and to say, oh, the world is ending, the markets are crashing. The markets are adjusting. Anytime you've got a strong leader who's looking at the long term, not how do I make sure Jake Tapper says nice things about me on State of the Union, oh, maybe I shouldn't do the tariffs today. That just isn't how this president operates. He operates in how do I save a country that for 100 years has been sliding toward decline as we have moved all of our manufacturing out into the world, as we have bowed at the altar of other countries' tariffs, as we have watched our farmers and our ranchers, again, can't get our corn into Mexico, can't get our dairy into Canada, have Honduras buying more pork and poultry than the entire European Union, have a 700% tariff from Japan on our rice. This is not okay, and it is not sustainable. And for us to continue to build our agriculture, which is the backbone of our country, but also our manufacturing base, our energy, et cetera, for us to be able to do that, we have to put America first. So those tariffs, as the economy, the market begins to adjust, we will see a more positive as we move, I believe, very quickly.
So just in point of fact, the reason that the European Union, even though they are our fourth biggest market for agricultural products, as you know, don't take as much American pork as you would like is because they have issues with hormones used in pork. I don't want to get into a whole debate over that, but it's not an issue about tariffs. But let me ask you about the computation of these tariffs, because conservative economists at the American Enterprise Institute...
But wait, hold on, Jake. No. This is really important. You can't just say that. So here's the bottom line. They are using fake science and unsubstantiated claims to not take our products. So it isn't just that they have high tariffs. Thank you for making this point for me, by the way. I meant to make it. It's not just the tariff numbers. It's the way they've treated our products. Oh, sorry, we can't take your beef since 2002 because you use a certain type of feed. That's just absolute bull. It is not correct and not appropriate. Our supplies, our farmers and ranchers, we produce the safest, the most secure, the best food in the world. And so to use that for the EU to say, oh my goodness, we can't do it because of this reason, it's absolutely wrong and it's not based on sound science.
Okay, well, you can take that up with the Europeans. Conservative economists at the American Enterprise Institute say that when the Trump administration came up with these tariff rates, you should have used as a basis the elasticity in the response of import prices to tariffs instead of retail prices. And AEI, a conservative group, says because the Trump administration mixed that up, the entire computation's wrong, and these tariff rates are set 4 times too high. They make a compelling case. Is that true?
Listen, I'm from the think tank world. I ran multiples of think tanks. I built the America First Policy Institute in the intervening 4 years between Trump 1 and Trump 2. I have a lot of good friends at the American Enterprise Institute. I don't mean to throw all of them under the bus, but I will say this. AEI has never been a friend of the president's. They have never been a friend of an America First agenda. They have never come alongside and helped us effectuate what we believe is today's
but did you use
conservative
retail
vision for
prices instead of
America?
import prices?
And they're just wrong on this.
So you didn't
They're
use...
just wrong. You know, Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent, these are the smartest, most incredible economists, businessmen on our side, along with President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and others. I have 100% faith in the formulas that they used and how they came up with these numbers.
All right. I mean, they say that you used retail prices as opposed to import prices, and they make a compelling case. I'd ask you to check it out. The reason I ask you is because...
not read...
Yeah. Well, I'd ask you to check it out. You should read it. The reason I ask is because a lot of people are questioning the level of scholarship here behind how these tariffs were done. For example, President Trump laid out with a giant graphic of all the countries where tariffs were going to be, what he called reciprocal tariffs were going to be imposed. And you're imposing a 10% tariff on the herd in McDonald Islands. The herd in McDonald Islands have 0 human inhabitants. They have 0 exports. They have 0 imports. They do have a lot of penguins. Why are you putting import tariffs on islands that are entirely populated by penguins?
Well, I mean, come on, Jake. Obviously, here's the bottom line. We live under a tariff regime from other countries. We have too long
the McDonald Islands is not imposing...
the idea that America goes first. I mean, come on. Whatever. Listen, the people that are leading this are serious, intentional, patriotic, the smartest people I've ever worked with. I did not come up with the formulas. I'm the ag secretary. I studied agriculture at Texas A&M. I was in a lot of conversations to make sure our farmers and our ranchers were part of that. The president recognized the importance of inputs. We got potash and fertilizer to make sure they could do their planting. But I have no doubt that I speak on behalf of President Trump when he would say he has the utmost confidence in the team and what they have built and what they have put together. And we are unleashing a new golden age, and we will see an economy that will benefit not just every corner of America, but our farmers and our ranchers and the people that have been left behind for far too long by both Republicans and Democrats.
So you say that America's farmers and ranchers understand there's going to be this short time of uncertainty, and there were obviously financial help for farmers and ranchers during the first Trump administration. Take a listen to North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy. They don't have time, so we've got to be crisp on this implementation. Otherwise, we could do damage that's irreparable to farmers and businesses.
What's your response to Senator Tillis?
So the bottom line is this. In the last 4 years, the cost of inputs for our farmers went up 30%. In the last 4 years, we had an agriculture export deficit that increased from 0 when President Trump left to $49 billion. Our farming and our farmers and ranchers are hurting. They are operating at margins of profit that are thinner than they have in a really long time due to the policies of the last 4 years. But to Senator Tillis's point, we have to be prepared that if there is longer term damage and this president has...
Ok, o sea que ciencia falsa, ¿no? Pero a ver, ¿de qué habla? ¿Qué significa esto siquiera? Amigos, es que ni siquiera se entiende lo que intentan defender. Ahora, ver que la bolsa está por los suelos es una teoría científica. No, amigos, eso se llama usar los ojos. Lo que estamos viendo es una economía golpeada, una economía destruida solo por decisiones absurdas. Lo peor de todo esto es que estas políticas no se basan en evidencia real, se basan en mentiras descaradas, se basan en manipulaciones. Y por ejemplo, vimos a Rachel Maddow, ¿no?, en su programa, que aprovechó también el tiempo para exponer una de las más grandes. Vamos a ver este clip.
In all of his books, Peter Navarro has cited an economics expert to justify his views. And the economics expert he cites is somebody named Ron Vera, V-A-R-A, Ron Vera. When Trump won the presidency and entered the White House, this Ron Vera started circulating a memo around Washington in support of Trump using tariffs in trade policy. According to the New York Times, the memo had been, quote, sent from an email address purportedly belonging to Ron Vera. At one point, Ron Vera wrote in the memo that Trump could, quote, ride the tariffs to victory. Problem is, Ron Vera doesn't exist. He never has. The economics expert that Peter Navarro has long cited to explain why he's so gung-ho on tariffs, this person, Ron Vera, is a made-up person. He is a fictional person. Peter Navarro invented Ron Vera as his expert source so he could quote this expert source over and over and over again in his crackpot books. Who is Ron Vera? Ron Vera is an anagram of Navarro, which is his last name. But that really is how the Trump administration crafted its tariff policy. That's where Trump came up with the tariff idea. Circulating a fake memo from a fake person with a fake email address in order to make it look like this was a serious issue being debated by real experts. That is the intellectual basis on which Donald Trump today wiped $6 trillion of wealth out of existence and crashed America's markets and brought America and the world to the brink of a self-inflicted, on-purpose, global Great Depression along the lines of what we had in 2008 and what the pandemic inflicted upon us in 2020. This time, the global disaster is Donald Trump's big brain.
Es que, amigos, no puede ser. Ya de por sí la situación es mala. Pero cuando te das cuenta de que todo esto es parte de una mentira creada por Peter Navarro, se te cae el alma al piso. Y para que encima Elon Musk esté criticando esa política, amigos, imaginen lo grave que es eso. O sea, hasta Elon Musk ha llegado hasta este punto. La verdad, esto ya nos sorprende. A veces pienso que me va a indignar, pero ya ni siquiera eso, ¿no? ¿Por qué? Porque ya lo sabíamos. Ya lo habíamos advertido. Se dijo 1000 veces que esto iba a suceder. Y aún así, pues lastimosamente, aquí estamos. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Como siempre, apóyame con un like, compartiendo este video con tus amigos y suscribiéndote a nuestro canal. Políticamente en desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.